Welcome back, everybody. We have a fantastic second session lined up for you. We have Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner talking about Rainmaker podcasting, and followed by Jen Lee, who's always a treat. Um, Quick note about Doug and Strick, both of them are phenomenal. They do my podcast as well as Steve Fretzon's podcast and another speaker's podcast, a bunch of other folks. These people know their stuff. What I really love about their approach is they really worked with me to make sure my podcast helps my business. It's not just something I put out there, it actually has a measurable business return, and it's had a positive ROI every year I've started it. So, without further ado, Doug Strick, you're up.
Thanks, Alay. Thanks for having us very much. And hey, everybody, we've had a chance to, at least I've had a chance to check in a couple of the speakers that have been here since the beginning and really enjoying the content. So we'll keep on track and we'll keep on path. And Strickland is definitely the river banks for me, and I am the river. So I will meander many different angles. But Strickland, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, Doug tends to wander if we let him, so we won't let him do that. So, a little background about Doug and I. We have our own podcast called The Nice Guys on Business with over 4 million downloads, 1,500 episodes. And we also run Turnkey Podcast Productions. We've launched over 250 shows. We've produced thousands of episodes. And what we're all about really is not putting out this product that is a podcast, because of course everybody has a podcast now. We, as Alay said, are really all about creating a podcast that is going to help you grow your business. That is kind of what we're all about. We have got Doug, did you see that slide of
Yeah, let me share that again.
On and off
Sorry.
too quick. I'm just not paying
Sorry
attention.
about that. If
We have a number of current clients, including Alay and Steve Fretzon, who are lawyers shaping the New York City skyline on intellectual property, light bulb moments. These are all current clients of ours who are lawyers or work with law firms that we're helping out. 3 big ways that we help grow your business. The first one, the easiest one, is brand awareness. That is a bit of a long approach. Doug, why don't we go into a couple quick details for that? Because I don't want to get too deep into that one.
Sure. And if it's okay, Strick, I want to back up here for just one quick second, just so everybody is kind of understands the landscape. Every one of these attorneys in the top section, the legal podcast clients that we have, they all approach their podcast slightly differently. Some people do it and they want to just make sure that people are aware that they're around. Some people want to do it and make sure that they are the subject matter expert in whatever type of law that they practice. And some of the clients that we that have hired us to do their production want us specifically because they want it as a Rainmaker podcast. They want to do it for business development, to get referrals. So there's a number of different approaches. And then you have guys like Alay and Steve Fretzon who support the legal community, who all have messages specific to their businesses as well. So whether you are someone that supports the legal community or you're an attorney that has a specific goal in mind for your podcast, that is something that you can use podcasting to help you grow. But as Strickland said, brand awareness is probably one of the most popular reasons that people get started podcasting. They want to plant their stake in the ground. They want to start a podcast that's about, let's say, intellectual property, and they are really specific in a specific type of law, and they want everybody to know that is what they are so good at. So brand awareness is absolutely something that you can do. You get on the air, you have a conversation with other professionals, other people in the industry, maybe even clients, and you're just talking about the stuff that you are a subject matter expert in. And as you are doing that, obviously people are making themselves, you're making yourself aware, or you're making the market aware that that's exactly what you do. So brand awareness is one of the most popular reasons that people get started podcasting.
But it's a
not,
long road. It is not the kind of thing where you can just put a couple episodes out and you're immediately the expert in the field. Whenever you put an episode out, you're always going to be reinforcing that. But again, it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that happens even in a couple of months. It's something that takes a long time. And so that's where a lot of businesses and podcasters get frustrated, because like, hey, I put 4 episodes out. I've been doing this for a month. Why am I not seen as the expert in the field? Why don't I have 1 million downloads? that takes time. But we have a couple of other ways that we help businesses approach podcasting that can help bring revenue in and grow the business a little quicker than that. And so the next one is about business development. Doug, why don't you go into some details about that?
Sure. And Strick, this was the one that when we struck upon this for our own business, which is podcast production, so it's a little meta, teaching you about podcasting on a podcast, but let's talk about the practice of law. If you want to make money podcasting using your podcast as the tool, and you don't want to wait a year or 2 years to build a community that's finally going to, have somebody in the audience say, hey, I want to hear more information about what you do. Instead of doing that, you have a more direct path to your client, and that is through your guest seat. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can actually make money podcasting or use that your podcast as the Rainmaker tool. You can either look for people that are directly involved with getting involved in your practice, meaning somebody that could potentially become a client. Or if you're in the type of law that you don't want to put, let's say you practice family law and you're not going to have somebody sit in your guest seat talk about their divorce or the issues that they're having if they have a liability issue with an organization. But maybe instead of doing that, you have the opportunity to get someone in that guest seat that could be a good referral source for you. So I know a lot of attorneys, they might talk to estate planners. They may speak to financial advisors. They may have CPAs that are great referral sources of business for them. And what better opportunity that you have to build a relationship with someone than out of that guest seat. So you can use that guest seat as the tool for either finding referrals or finding direct clients, depending on the type of law that you practice.
One of our shows, Shaping the New York City Skyline, it's Seiden and Shine, big law firm in New York, and they focus on real estate and development. And so their clients are often developers and, banks, anybody that is involved in real estate, specifically in New York City. So they started their show and they bring on developers, some who are their clients or have been past clients, but other developers who are talking about projects that they happen to be working on or projects that they are thinking about. Now, some of these guests are people that they don't have relationships with and that they didn't know ahead of time. So if someone from the law firm was to reach out to you as a real estate developer and say, hey, do you have any legal needs? I want to help you out. They're not going to want to talk to you. But if they reach out to a developer and say, hey, I understand you have done these projects in the past in New York, and you're working on these projects in the future, we'd love to bring you onto our podcast so you can talk about the projects, because we are all about the New York City skyline. Well, of course, he's going to want to come on and talk about himself or herself and talk about the projects and basically say what a great job that they've done. It's free advertising. They use this as their relationship tool. They get to know the person. And over the course of the conversation, while that person is in the guest seat, they are reinforcing that they are very familiar specifically with real estate laws in New York City, which can be really complicated. So over the course of, let's say, in their case, their episodes tend to run a bit long. They like to talk a lot. So over the course of an hour in speaking to someone, they really get a great opportunity to create a relationship with them. And that relationship over the past year and a half that they've been doing podcasts with us has turned into a number of new clients. The great thing about that is it is immediate feedback. Yes, they've put out a year and a half of episodes, so they're being seen as the expert in the field. But even if their second episode, when they bring somebody on to create that relationship, they could create a new client immediately as soon as that conversation is over.
One of the things I love about this approach to podcasting is that it really does eliminate that I want to call it the salesperson prospect dance, or that firm or attorney to prospect dance. There is none of that, because you're not soliciting them for business. What you're actually doing is asking to open up a conversation with them to talk about what they do best, which is in Side and Shine's program, it's development or banking. And depending on what subject matter that you, or what specialty that your practice has, if it's general law, if it's liability, if it's intellectual property, you're just having a conversation with someone that may have been untouchable prior to you connecting with them. Or it really does also lower the bar for the pressure that's on you when you're at a networking event. People would love to talk about your podcast. They probably don't necessarily want to talk about what you do, what type of law that you practice, for fear that whatever you're going to share with them or whatever they're sharing back to you, you're going to use it against them to try to get them to get their business. Having a conversation with somebody about something that they do and say, hey, I think that this would be a really good subject for us to talk about on our legal podcast. Would you be open to sharing some of your insights and your wisdom? When you have a positive stroke or an ego stroke like that with someone, there is a high probability that they're going to say yes. And as Strickland said a little bit earlier, perfectly well, it is all about building the relationship with someone. Even at a networking event where you're meeting someone for the first time, it's very rare. I like your company so much, or I liked the conversation so much, I'd like to give your firm my business. It's not that. It's always, let's have an additional conversation about what you do and how you do it. And in this particular case with the podcast, it's such an easy barrier to hurdle to jump over when you say, I have a podcast. I'd love to chat with you about your message and what you do for a living on the show. Would you be open to that?
Now, depending on your specialty, if you are real estate specialists like Sight and Shine, it makes it really easy because, of course, you can invite developers on or bankers or whoever you need that you may want to create a direct relationship with. Now, as Doug said earlier, obviously, if you are doing personal injury, no one is going to want to come on and talk about their personal injury
or divorce law or any of that. Yeah,
exactly. So it makes it a bit more challenging. And in those instances, there's another way that you can do it. We recommend finding people that will send referrals your way. How many of you out there work mainly on referrals? And by the way, there are two kinds of referrals. There is somebody says to another person, hey, I work with this law firm. They're great. Come on and go talk to them if you need some help. Well, the other would be, let's say if you are doing tax law, for example. Well, accountants are going to have clients that they may need to refer to you if they have more complex tax problems that go beyond the scope of their accounting. So it's not a direct referral where that accountant may want to be a client for you, but their clients may be able to be referred to you for business. And that is the next way that we recommend that you bring those type of people into your seat, the guest seat, to create the relationship with them.
Strick, I think that we've struck upon the, okay, why would podcasting potentially work in the legal world? But the next question that I would have if I was an attorney looking at this is, well, especially for some of the smaller practices where you're doing everything, you're doing business development, you're doing marketing, you're even maybe answering the phone in your own practice, which is again a big challenge. Oftentimes is time management. We don't want to throw one more thing on your plate. So one of the questions that we oftentimes get from some of the firms that we are working with is, this sounds great, but I mean, how am I going to put this into an already busy schedule? So Strick, maybe can you share a little bit about how the model works?
Yeah, and that's the thing with podcasting. If you look at it as this product, this thing I'm going to put out every week, and hopefully it'll get me some name recognition. Well, yeah, then it's going to be a drag on your time, on your energy, on your resources. But if you really focus on it as a business growth tool, just like any other marketing tool, just like ads that you're going to put on Google or on LinkedIn or whatever else that you do for your marketing, think about creating a podcast as a marketing tool. And if you want to create it yourself and you can find a team and they can put it all together for you, the real question with marketing, obviously, you want to try and grow your firm. So currently, what do you have more of? Do you have more time or do you have more money to invest in growing in your firm? And if you have more time, or let's say you have resources, you have legal assistants that are kind of twiddling their thumbs because you don't have enough work. There are lots of ways you can go out there, find a free course to how to start a podcast. You can use our tips to try to get the right guests into the guest seat. So that's the quick way to do it. or I'm sorry, not the quick way to do it. That's the easy way to do it if you have more time than money. Now, where we come in, we've done this for many, many businesses, and we not only help create a podcast that will help grow your business. In other words, we want to help you create a podcast that will specifically attract the guests that will help grow your business. We can also assist with putting those guests into the seat, walking you through how to turn a guest into a client or turn a guest into a referral source, because we have done it a few hundred times. So these are the kind of things that we would be very happy to help with if you wanted help with that. And Doug, I see we've kind of gotten through a lot of this. I know you got a few more comments. We're like super early. We've done the whole thing in 15 minutes. So we would love to take some questions after you say what you want to say.
Oh yeah. I mean, and of course, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Hey, how would this specifically work for this type of practice? We're happy to, we've been approached by many different types of businesses, many different types of law firms, financial advisors, those in the medical field, like, hey, I don't see how this could potentially work for me. I'm happy to share that if you just drop, maybe the type of law that you practice into the chat box, and we'll take a swing at that. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that we want you to do what you do best, which is practice law. What we don't want you to do, or the thing that we really want to help you avoid, is doing the stuff that is not in what we would call your zone of genius. And that would be editing of your podcast, putting the open and the close at the beginning and the end, getting it posted to a hosting source, making sure that you have the right promotional content, even emailing the guest that's been sitting in the guest seat, any follow-up correspondence, even scheduling the guest in the very beginning. If you know who the ideal avatar is, the perfect person that fits into the client mold of what your firm is looking for, your practice is looking for, we can even be the legwork to go out and do that for you too. So guest acquisition, all the production, all of the marketing pieces. Now, we're not a social media management company, so we don't post it to your social media accounts, but we can certainly give you all of the tools that you can do that. What we really want to do is help you stay in that zone of genius, which is practicing law. And if that means putting you in front of enough prospects that make sense to become clients of your firm, then that's what we do. Now, look, some clients of ours are not just looking at it as a business development resource. Some of them want to do it so that they can become or be seen more as the subject matter expert. It's kind of like writing a book. When you have a book, you are a subject matter expert. When you have a podcast, people look at you slightly differently as somebody that's an expert in that particular type of law or that practice. So yeah, no matter what your field is and what type of law that you practice, what we want to help do is build a show. So do all of the building of the template for your podcast, help you create the cover art, and do all of the things that are necessary to launch the show. And then once the show is launched, all of the things that are in the production side. So editing, distribution, helping you with the marketing collateral, correspondence with the guest acquisition. Is there anything that I'm missing on that laundry list?
And the guest management and how much time it's going to take. Most of our clients take about 30 minutes a week, maybe 2 hours a month. Some clients will record all of their episodes for the week in one afternoon for the entire month. So we know you guys have law firms to run. You've got more important things to focus on. We have lots of tips and tricks and ways that you can make sure that this does not take up a lot of your time, but it is something that can help grow your business. Now, having said all of that, can we provide all that help for you? Yeah, but we're really here to help you. So, we've got another 10 minutes. If you've got questions about the thing that we get a lot is, that wouldn't work for my firm. Well, if you're thinking that right now, like, hey, it seems like a great idea in theory, but it would never work for my firm, drop us a question. Let us know what is your focus, or what it is that you do and why you think it won't work. We would love to help with that. We love to do like specific examples. The best way to show somebody else how does this work for you is, by having a real life example thrown out there, because we've seen it work for so many different lawyers and companies that provide services for lawyers. LA is one of those. Steve is another.
Right. Hey, LA, are you in the background right there? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm looking around.
Hey, I'm just are you lurking around in the background? I'm just curious. Can maybe you could chime in for a second if you would. Now, Alay, I know you're in the business of supporting law firms, but I'm just curious what people are generally short. Are they short time? Are they short the desire? I mean, business development, I'm assuming, is one of those things within law practices that is a highly essential component of building a practice, and that's also sometimes the biggest challenge of building a practice as well.
It is, and a lot of attorneys don't like to do business development for a lot of different reasons. Where I feel like a podcast could be an interesting game changer is it's a really unique way of establishing yourself as not to step on Bruce's toes as an expert, but it is a really good way of establishing yourself as a thought leader. So if you're looking to differentiate yourself, whether you're an attorney or a business coach or somebody else, getting out there on a podcast definitely gives you a level of authority that, a lot of other people necessarily won't be able to match. And then, just my personal situation, I did my own podcast for I think 3 months before Steve connected me with you both.
Hmm.
And I was just about ready to throw in the towel because I had done so much work getting the equipment and getting all set up and then editing on weekends and stuff like that. Missing deadlines because we wanted to get it out every week. And then you were able to take a lot of that off my plate. And now I think I have episodes booked through, I
Right.
think like November or something like that. So it works really well when it's done. But I think one of the challenges is that there's just so much to do to get started.
Right. Right.
How do you help, busy business owners and attorneys get over that initial hump of getting the equipment and everything else they need?
No, that's great. Very good question. Thanks for touching upon that. So one of the things that we really try to stress is the fact that we want to make this as frictionless as possible, friction-free startup for getting a podcast rolling. And that includes things like, hey, let's build the cover art and let's help you set up the technology with your microphone and let's make sure that you understand the Zoom preferences. I know some of these individually may seem like easy tasks, but when you put 10 or 12 of these I have to do this in order to launch a podcast, getting approval through Apple Podcasts and Spotify, getting an RSS feed and a hosting source, building the voiceover at the beginning and the end, all of that stuff. That's like nobody wants to do that. They don't want, what's the expression that you've said to me a million times, Strickland? When you want a hole in the wall, you don't want the drill, you want the hole. So
Right.
you don't want to have to worry about the construction of the podcast. So literally within a 30-day period of time, with requiring very little of your time and a lot of our time behind the scenes, we're building all of those templates, all of those elements that are needed in the garage to build your podcast. And it is 10 or 12 of those things that would be time consuming if you had to do it on your own.
The other
Uh,
thing that's incredibly important is making sure you create a podcast that is going to attract the right client. Shaping the New York City skyline is a great example. They didn't start a podcast that is about the legal hassles of real estate in New York City. It is a podcast that is focused on the developers and the development because that's who they want to bring on. If you are a tax lawyer, you may, if you know that your best referral source is accountants, you want to create a podcast that will attract accountants to come on the show so you can create the relationship with them and show them what value you offer to them so they can offer value to you by sending clients your way.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about a podcast. One of them is people look at it maybe as intimidating. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I've got to get onto, Apple's top 10 list and stuff like that." And you don't at all, right? The idea is just to
Right.
be really, really focused on a specific niche and to have that niche really listen to what you have to say.
It's interesting you say that the misconceptions or the myths about podcasting, none of us, sorry, LA, you included in this group here, none of us are Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss or Tony Robbins. We don't come to podcasting with a community of millions of people already. The average podcast will get somewhere between 50 and 200 downloads per episode, even after a long range of a year or 2 years. Now, remember, building a podcast monetization monster the way that we have with our podcast and we teach others how to do it, you do not require millions of listeners. The people that are getting millions of listeners are looking to the millions of listeners because they think the revenue generation tool in podcasting is through advertising and sponsorship. While there are some dollars that will come from that, even the small podcasts, ultimately, where we're going to get and we're going to teach you how to build your monetization monster with your legal podcast is through that guest seat. It's building the guest seat to bring in the right people that are attracted to your message that would be an ideal candidate for the services that you provide and the referrals of those services that you provide too. So, myth, I need millions of listeners. Well, you can make a healthy mid six figure or seven figure income with a couple hundred people listening to your show. That's number one. Secondly, I don't understand technology. It's cool. Don't worry about it. Plug and play microphone and a relationship with us is all you need, because we're going to be there when you record if you choose to have us there. We have some clients that for years have had us on every single call that they have made. You don't have to worry about technology. Personality. I don't have a personality. I'm not a great interviewer. I don't know how to talk to people. That is okay. We give you all of the tools and we're right there with you, training you through all of this. If you just want to turn a blind eye to business development, sure, you don't podcast, but this to me has been, when we discovered the monetization tool of using that guest seat, we actually have a name for it. We call it the guest to gold strategy. When we created that strategy, we had a completely different perspective on where success comes from in the game of podcasting.
Yeah, it works out awesome. And one of my clients, by the way, has a podcast. And for all you attorneys, he practices appellate law, and he has a podcast just focused on that. And it's really focused on other appellate attorneys, and he has gotten referrals from it. So this model absolutely works. It works to establish thought leadership. It works to show your referral sources. Hey, here's something I can give you. If you're in a networking organization or you have a tribe that you refer business to, you can put them in the guest seat, advertise them. Who doesn't want to be on a podcast? And it's free marketing for them, and they will feel fantastic about it and be well disposed towards you. And then, there's the guest to gold strategy, which for attorneys is probably the least obvious one. But you know what? You never know. So encourage everyone who's listening, if you're looking to increase your marketing capabilities, this is something fun. And for me, that's awesome. It's fun and it's easy to do.
Just in case anyone has more questions or has information or wants to know, hey, how specifically can this work for us? We're probably as laid back as it could be when it comes to selling. So if somebody wants to just have a moment, just say, hey, will this work for my practice? Can this work for our firm? Just go to turnkeypodcast.com/meet. It'll be a 20-minute meeting. Connect with us, connect with me specifically on my schedule, and we'll put together just a strategy for you that will work. If at the end of the call you don't see that it could potentially work, there is no, special deal only if you call me now. That's not it at all. Just connect with me. Let's figure out if podcasting is something that will work for you, and if it will, happy to help. And if it won't, that's okay too.
Awesome. And we do have a question that came in from Sharon. She's asking, is there a difference between podcasting and YouTube?
So it's interesting. Strick, you want to take this?
No, go ahead, Doug. You can go.
Yeah, with podcasting, oftentimes what we tell our clients is that let's start with audio. It's one less element that you have to focus on when it comes to putting your podcast together. You don't have to stare into the blue eyeball of your camera. We can take all of the content that you've created, we can capture the video, and absolutely we can post it on YouTube as well. Many of the clients that we have in their advanced stages of podcasting take the audio podcast that they do, and including the video that they capture during the recording, and they post that up to YouTube. YouTube has different ways that they can monetize as well, and it's another resource for you. So I wouldn't hesitate to recommend YouTube. Just depends on where you're entering into the technology game in the beginning, whether it would be a good idea to start that way.
The other difference between YouTube versus podcasts are, with a podcast, you put it out there and it's available on audio on lots of different platforms. So it's available on Apple, on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, basically there are dozens and dozens of places that anybody can download it. They can just listen super quick. YouTube, you have to specifically go to YouTube.
Awesome. So turnkeypodcast.com/meet if you're interested in getting more information. Alea, we so appreciate you opening up your audience and your summit for us as well.
Yeah, my pleasure, Doug. Strick, great to see you both. And we'll be talking soon, of course.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.